Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Show to V with Mike G, the show of life, the show of corn, the show of mezcal, the show of San Diego, and so much more. Today's guest is the incredible Cesar Sandoval from Abasolo, Mexican corn whiskey, and Nixta, Licor de Elote, two amazing projects that are all centered around Mexico and centered around corn. You know, Cesar and I have been nerding out about corn on Instagram. These messages are getting very, very scientific. So it's diving into a chat with him, talking about drums, talking about music, talking about his hospitality background, and an incredible thing. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy this great chat with Cesar Sandoval.
The enclosing of COVID, the not being able to travel, things like that makes you get in your own head a little bit more and makes you think of things. Now, for some people, that's very challenging, and especially if you're dealing with anxiety or depression, that's actually the opposite of what you want. You want to keep your mind busy. And you know, I think I've been guilty of that as well, feeling, you know, blue or the sadness. But my goals have shifted in the sense of what's important in life. What, after all of this that I do, whether it's drumming or brand ambassador or all of these things, you know, it's not, how many, you know, the amount of friends is great, and the amount of connections. I really love connecting people just like you do. But my goals have shifted to kind of what's more important in life. It's more of how many people have I impacted or empowered, I should say. How many people can I lift before I leave? I think it's something that we all struggle with. And how do you empower people? Well, sometimes you may look at, you know, your idols or your fans, vice versa, whoever you're looking up to or is listening to you. How do you impact them? How did they impact you? And some people can get carried away and say, I can't do that. Like, he's too great. He's too cool, or she's too cool, or she's too great. But that's the struggle. That's the whole point of getting there. So I think for me, my goals have shifted of family is more important. And whether that be mother, sister, fiance, or whoever, I consider a lot of my friends family. I really do. That's part of being in the hospitality industry. You treat everyone like it's your house. And if you don't, you shouldn't be in hospitality, right? Yeah. So I'm the same way. I love connecting people. I love putting on a show, whether that be drumming, bartending, or whatever. But I want to know how many people I affected to inspire them and empower them to do other things.
You know, it's interesting, as I think, I completely agree. There are chapters of maturity, I think, once you come into what you might consider, whether it's emotional maturity or stability, or professional maturity or stability. But this seems like, not that you weren't trying to connect people, but this a recent thing that you've surmised, is that really what this whole thing's about, whether that's life, whether it's career, it's really about how we affect other people.
Yeah. And I think those points that you make are always achieved with the darkest in times. Like, you have to go through something bad, whether it's a breakup, a death, COVID, or whatever it may be. Something bad has to happen in order for something good to happen. It's just nature.
It's weird, right? I use the term brutal balance yesterday, the other day, with my friend Emma. She's working on a new book. She's a great woman. I've known her for years. She used to live in Austin. She wrote this great mezcal book, and she's a writer. So I took that as a compliment, because I'm like, the brutal balance, the immediate brutal balance of life is crazy, because you're gonna get beaten over the head with it, Cesar. Just to your point, right? But I guess the thing is, what in those darkest of days for you, whether you mentioned feeling blue, what is the thing that really can pull you out of that?
Man, it can be so many. I mean, for some of us will be music and maybe a movie gives you, but it's a sense of escapism and inspiration. Like whether it's the tough dad mentality, whether it's going out to the middle of the desert and maybe, tripping out or getting as drunk as possible. Like that's something that is individual to every person. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of hard to really say, here's, the cookie cutter sheet of how to get out of it, because I can never understand when someone with massive depression or someone that suicides or something like that. I've never gotten that close, nor could I say, I understand that, but I empathize. And it's just difficult. I think every person has their own thing of what they need to do.
Right. And you particularly, I would imagine music is a nice plus safe harbor for you.
Yeah, I mean, the drums or guitar or whatever will always be there, and it's a form of expression. Maybe I can't tell someone I hate them, I love them, I'm sad, but I can do it through music and let that anger out or that frustration. And they don't judge you. It's just music, instruments, and you can just write your own language through it.
It's like pets, man. Same thing with animals, right?
Exactly. Yeah, unconstitutional love. Like they'll always be there for you.
Yeah, it's incredible. Well, so this is the thing I find really interesting is you're a first generation Mexican American. The folks, and would love to hear about this, but you were born in San Diego, or were you in California?
No, I was born in El Paso, Texas. So
yes,
I'm a Tejano.
Yes, okay, I love it. Well, I was not born here, but I lived here about 20 years. I want to discuss something with you because last time I was in Ciudad de Juarez, I was in it was the downtown central. I forgot. There's multiple places. It wasn't the place with the statue. It was just like where the markets are.
Probably like El Centro
Centro. Yeah, I think so. So I was sitting there eating a taco, drinking a Coca-Cola, and it was pretty nice out for Texas like weather, whatever. And I realized that everything that had ever been conveyed about Mexico and Juarez seemed to be inaccurate. Like, you know what I mean? That it's such a nasty place, or it's a dirty place, or it's a dangerous place. Well, now all these things might be true, but there was some real peace happening there. And how do you feel about how sometimes Mexico is represented?
I think it's in the eye of the beholder for sure. I agree. And I mean, same thing's happening now. Media is saying one thing, people are saying, no, I'm out here. It's all construed, but yes, Juarez has usually been one of the most dangerous cities in the world. And then you have El Paso right over. That's been one of the safest in the world. Like you have like top 5 safest, and then you have like top 5 most dangerous. For me, I think you kind of create your own path. Yes, there's some times where it's unfortunate that some innocent bystander or you get unlucky, but you put yourself in those sticky situations, right? Mm-hmm. So same thing happens here. I'm in San Diego now, and I go to Tijuana maybe, 3 times a week or so, whether it's just to eat and drink, whether it's to take my dogs to the vet or do dental work or whatever it may be. And so people are like, oh man, I really would love to go. Or people reach out and said, like, come on over. Like, I'll take you. I'm driving over there. Obviously this is pre-COVID. Yeah. But people are like, isn't it dangerous? Oh my God, you go there? Like, what are you doing? Be careful. And it's like, guys, I'm not going over there to buy drugs or I'm not going to put myself in that situation. I'm going to a restaurant to go visit friends or, dental work. So, and I got a message too, hey, be careful, TJ has the highest homicides, but those homicides are narcos are not going away until we legalize all drugs, which is a completely different subject. But it's just the nature of the game. But I'm not going to go out there and put myself in a dark alley or in a sticky situation. So I think it's sad that people still see it like that they still remember 2006, 2008. I think Juarez was 2004. And what happened is once 2004 happened and the whole narco situation and the war against drugs, well, people needed to escape there. So they came to TJ, and then 2006 happened here, and then TJ became, and it's just these narcos just kind of traveling. But for the most part, that's the fight between them. It's not like they're killing innocent bystanders just to do it,
But that's the thing. I'm glad that you can provide a little nuance to that, because sometimes we think of things so largely that just stereotypically, But so going back to this thing, a musician, and I'm a musician. We got so much we could talk about music. I don't want to bore people half to death, but does this, when growing up in El Paso, was it a musical family? Are you the first of the drummers in the house?
Yeah, no, actually, no music in my family. My grandma, every time I would go to Juarez, my grandma had this guitar, but it was always missing a string or whatever. And, I didn't have anyone that could teach me. So I have 3 or 4 singers, but they were never like professional singers. Like when you're at a family gathering of mine, everyone's like, play the jams and let's sing, let's jam out. And so they're all singing to the song, or one of my uncles plays really good guitar, so he's always playing the guitar. But no one really to teach me. So what happened is I was living in San Diego. I was about probably 9 years old, and I would go to the park every day. And one day, one of my coaches that was playing, that would teach me basketball and soccer and all the other things, I saw him playing guitar, and he was ripping. I mean, we call him Andy Van Halen because he rips like Eddie Van Halen. That is his idol. He's got the PV guitar, like the whole thing. And the guy's an amazing guitarist. His name's Andy Quinn. I think right now he's playing for Frankie J and Baby Bash, some R&B artist. But he rips. I mean, he's amazing. And so I saw him playing, and I was like, whoa, can you teach me? I have a guitar, which was my grandma's guitar that now my mom had. So sure enough, he restrung it, whatever. And he would close the rec center at 9 p.m. And at 9:02, once everyone left, 9:05, okay, you can't tell anyone we're here. And so he just start, the E, the A, the C, the chords. And then it's like, I was really into Nirvana at the time. So I wanted to learn all the Nirvana songs, which are great beginner songs in general. And so that just kind of inspired me to play guitar. And I went from there. And after years and years of playing guitar, I was more of a rhythm guitarist more than a lead. And so I had several bands. And in one of the bands, the drummer would never make it. Like, I'm stuck at work again, not going to make it. And you see a full drum set, I'm dropping the guitar and I'm going to go play like Will Ferrell and Step Brothers. Like, I'm just going to go bang them. And so, I started playing drums. My best friend was a bass player, which I taught him his chords. He eventually just surpassed me and plays like Flea. And so we just started jamming out 16, 17 hours a day. I mean, we'd wake up. Yeah, we'd wake up probably 8, 9 a.m. We had a barn that was pretty well soundproofed. And we would just play. Like, we wouldn't even really stop to have a snack or eat breakfast or anything. 10, 11.
How old were you talking when you
This was now, I was probably in high school, like 10th grade.
Okay.
Yeah, like 9th, 10th grade. And so we just played there like 67, like for a whole summer. And we just both got really good just by practicing and letting loose. And we would just have these jams of Pink Floyd, sort of Red Hot Chili Peppers, Jimi Hendrix, like this little hybrid of those three. Yeah. And it wouldn't stop. It would go from one jam to another jam to another jam. And it just would not stop. It wouldn't be like, okay, let's try that again. It would just, and we'd record it.
Because I loved those days. I miss those days now at 40 years old, but I still make my days. I'm not that old, Cesar, but
no, age is just a number.
It is just a number. Absolutely. Did you, because I know you studied international business and stuff, which is, taking that straight, narrow path. I've done the same thing, but there was a period for a while where I was like, dude, I just want to make it. I just want to get a record deal. Was that part of your plan too?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it started innocent of just wanting to play. Then once we had, my little bands, basically we're just playing for family or house parties or whatever, that got really fun. And then once I started writing my own material with a current band that I have, which is called Empire, with an AEMPIRE, then we started writing some really cool stuff. And we're like, man, this is like people were responding to it. People liked it. Like, we really love you. And we're just like, okay, I think this is something we can do. So we wrote one album. We got really good feedback from it. We wrote album number 2. And then, we had just booked, I think it was a total of 6 shows. We had just played the Music Box here in San Diego, which is a great venue. And it was like, great. Like, I think this is going to be sort of the year that we like do a mini tour and, rent the van and do that whole thing. And we always thought like, we want to make it and get a record deal, but we wouldn't mind losing money or cutting even by doing this tour. We just need to do it. And I think it's still something that I need to do before I die. Like, I'm still going to do it. And so COVID happened and we had to cancel all the shows, but we had Del Mar Fair, Soda Bar, Belly Up. We had all these things lined up and shows in LA, and then COVID happened. So right now, not only can I not visit my favorite bars and restaurants and travel to go like spread the love of my East, but I also can't play music for people like live. I've been watching documentaries and I'm just like, God damn, when am I going to play live music? It's just tearing me apart.
It's crazy, right? Like because there've been some good. This was still a little bit before COVID, but when I kind of started to watch it, but there's the Stooges doc that Jim Jarmusch did, which is fucking odd. Gimme Danger, I think is what it's called. But all these, I know that feeling, right? Where you see this, like the Foo Fighters doc that came out a while ago, but I watch it and I'm like, these four fucking walls are cluster. I'm becoming very claustrophobic because it's that feeling, that inspiration that you can only get by playing shows like that.
Yeah, and Dave Grohl is one of my. I think that I don't get like starstruck. Like if I see a celebrity, I'd be like, whatever, I don't care. But Dave Grohl's like my man crush. I'm like, you're just good at everything. Like you're a drummer, you're a guitarist, you can do everything. So I'd probably get a little starstruck with him. But yeah, I just saw the Bee Gees documentary, which was
fantastic. I want to see that. How was it?
It's really good. It's really good. And so yeah, just all these documentaries come out. I'm like, God, they're just teasing me completely. But I need to watch them. It's just I couldn't.
Yeah, it's. You were talking about escapism. I think that movies are a great way to do escapism. I think it's one of the most powerful things. But all right, so this is the thing I kind of like about you is that this creative element is also perfectly paired with this hospitality element. And I was reading up on you earlier, and I never got to make drinks for my grandma was a drunk. All right. So just anybody that's listening, she seemed like 10 feet tall when she would talk to me when she was drunk, but I never got the chance to make drinks for my family and stuff. My mom doesn't drink. But I hear that that's kind of how you cut your teeth on the hospitality, doing small little gatherings and making stuff for the family.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny that my most fond memories. So my mother, first generation, my sisters and my mom come from Ciudad Juarez. My mom still doesn't really speak English or gets really embarrassed to try to speak it. Both my sisters do speak English now. And so when we were at the house, it was like, okay, we're going to make pico de gallo, carnitas and whatever. And so, okay, I'll make the pico de gallo. Okay, I'll do this. And everyone just took their things and music was bumping and, we're just like hanging. Those are the happy times. So it was always like people are coming over and we're going to get food. And we usually at that point, it's not like I was in the hospitality industry. So, they're drinking wine, beer, and maybe like shitty tequila, whatever it may be at the time. But that was the fun part about it, was hosting people. And it's so funny that, then our Mexican family comes over, we eat, and then it's like, okay, you guys stay there. We're going to clean up. And I was like, no, we're all going to help you. And it's like, no. And so then everyone's in the kitchen. And it's just what we do. We'd go fishing. We'd fry the fish that day and have like a sitting outside. So everything always revolved around food.
Yeah.
And I'm a sweets person. I get it from my mom, but yeah, everything, I guess I cut my teeth there, and that was like my happy place. And my first job was as a host at a fancy restaurant, Chili's.
Oh yeah, love it.
And it went from there. I was hooked. I mean, I was really trying to get a job. I needed to get a job in general, but I was getting a job to buy a drum set was the original plan. And then hospitality, I love making people happy. I like that instant gratitude of people just making them happy. So I started as a host and then busser. Eventually came where I am now. And it's funny because before COVID, actually, if I go to a restaurant, sometimes I can't relax because I'm just judging everything. So I'm like, music's not playing right now, or that's the same song. And like, I'm just judging everything. And sometimes I just need to it's out of my control. I can't say anything.
Are you like that typically? Where whether it's music or hospitality, are you really, really detail oriented?
In a sense, yes, not to where I am a little bit compulsive. I wouldn't go OCD, but I am a little bit compulsive and things like that. And sometimes I just got to let go. I can overthink it, but it won't drive me mad. It won't ruin my night. If that makes any sense, it's not anything like that. But I will be like, hey, can you play? Like when I was, at least when I was working, I always had the iPad here because, it stops after a certain amount of songs. And it was always like, music's off. If music's off, I can't work. Like my brain is just not functioning. So if I go to a restaurant and their music's not playing, it's awkward silence for me. And it's not about losing the person in front of me. It's just I need that ambient noise for me to like survive. I can't work without music. I can't really do anything without music. It's kind of weird.
I like that. I sleep with a fan every night, not blowing on me, but I need that noise.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the one thing I used to listen to CDs. Remember, Cesar, when there were CDs?
I do remember CDs. It's funny when you ask someone what their favorite album is, and people are like albums. Like, what are you talking about? Just do singles. Like, I'm on Spotify. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's a weird. I actually didn't even think about that. The way you kind of like taxonomize music and stuff. But I remember, Columbia BMG music days. I got Vulgar Display of Power, which is top 5 metal records of all time by Pantera. And to show you how much I've listened to music, I slept all night with Vulgar Display of Power on repeat. And I had the terrible dreams. It was fucking.
That's the more impressive part, that you can sleep with a metal song playing in your background.
But I get it. There's background noise. There has to be something that kind of keeps moving you forward like that. And so so I see these two paths, right? So you're developing you got a really lovely resume in terms of being a mixologist or bartender, however you want to phrase it. But at some point, did you say, maybe I should take the straight and narrow path? Maybe someone along the way said, well, are you really going to be able to make a living as a musician? Which parents often say.
Oh yeah. Well, the hosting is like, my mom's like, oh, good that you're getting a job. And we would pay, me and my sisters, we would pay 30% of our paycheck to my mom. We always paid rent, even from 15, like even if we weren't paying. So we've always paid my mom. My mom's never really, she's helped out. She's a single mother, but she's a hustler. So she's, all right, rent's due. Like, what's going on? And we're like, we're just 15. I think it started that way for her. Like, okay, and then you're going to school, right? Like school's number one. And I get it, because now I preach that to anyone, like education. But I said, I'm going to do international business. And the whole reason why I chose international business, specialized in Western Europe, was because I'm going to own a restaurant in Spain or Italy. That was my goal. And that's what I worked for. And then the more and more you work at restaurants, the more you're like, maybe I don't want to own a restaurant. Like, this is tough. Like, everyone wants to own a restaurant because that's where you take your first date. That's where you go for anniversaries. That's where you go for important business meetings. That's where things happen. Like, it's not like, hey, you want to come over to my backyard and have some drinks when I'm trying to impress you. No, we're going to go to a restaurant. So that started happening, and people think, maybe I'll just open a restaurant. It's like, no. It's not that easy. Like, you've never even worked in a restaurant. And so at a certain point, that happened. And same with music. But once you like, man, I might have something here. Like, I think I'm kind of good at it, and you're getting that feedback, you start realizing this is doable. Again, with music, I know like how hard it is and what a dog world it is out there. And so for that, it's more of a passion project. I've accepted that now, that it's now passion. I still want to go on tour, even if I have to invest my own money in it. And as far as restaurant/hospitality, I always knew I was never going to get out of it.
Yeah.
And I think my mom, with, the award or the article write-up or whatever, she started accepting it. She now accepts it fully. But I think it was kind of like, so when are you going to finish school? And when are you going to get a real job? But once she started seeing like, oh, my son's actually really good at this, like, she kind of started seeing it just through what everyone else was seeing of my resume building up. So
it's incredible, man. Some of these similarities. So I also grew up to a single mother. Never met my father. Are you in that? Is that the same scenario for you?
Yeah, I never met my father. Nor seen a picture. I wouldn't, like, if he was sitting next to me, I wouldn't know. Yeah,
I did have the unfortunate incident, if you will, of seeing a picture of him. And I'm like, fuck. Because I know kind of how I look for my mom. Kind of like some similarities, but my dad, I'm like, shit. Because if I age like that, I really need to take care of myself.
Yeah.
But all right, so this is all kind of making sense, and I want to ask you, as a first generation Mexican American, is your passion for, how about this? So we seem to think, gringos in the States, because obviously you and I are heavily into mezcal, we seem to think that there's one unified community of Mexicans living in the States. And how accurate would that statement be, Cesar?
It would be almost as accurate as saying every Mexican's the same in every state of Mexico. It just doesn't. It just doesn't happen. You have your Tejanos, you have your New Mexico Mexicans, you have your California Mexicans, you have your New York Mexicans. They're all different, which makes it beautiful. It would suck if we were all the same. I mean, oh, you're Mexican, I know everything about you. Like same with the culture. So no, not completely different, but really different. You can't bundle them up. That's like saying all Americans or white people are all the same. That would just not be true and not really, I think
so why I ask that is, can there then be at least, because we're going to start talking about the beautiful agriculture of Mexico, but can there be a singular Mexican pride?
Yes, but within that singular Mexican pride, people will want to split off because at this day and age, everyone in the world thinks they're unique. I mean, they are unique in their own sense. So you can unify that big group, and that happened here as well with Julio Cesar Chavez. No, we're not Mexicans, we're Chicanos. Okay, so now the Chicanos split up. Mexicans are saying like, dude, you're Mexican. Chicanos are like, no, we're Chicanos. Okay, so then that happens. And now it's happening again. I'm not a Latino, I'm not a Latina, I'm Latina X. Like, guys, we can't unify here, but the Latina X thing for me that doesn't, it's just a way of the she, her, he, them, which I totally get, but the Latinx is, again, from Latinx, there's going to be a Latin Y because I'm not Latinx, I'm not Latino. Like, it'll just keep splitting off because people want to be their own.
You said something interesting. We all are the same in that we're not the same, that we're unique, Knowing that, because as we talk kind of about the Abasolo stuff here in Montelobos, you seem to be pretty adept at operating in social media, capturing things away. Do you find that has become more difficult as, one, people are in a vacuum chamber of emotion right now, but also because it seems like just on the handle that something will really set someone off?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was a struggle for me to actually get the content that I'm putting up, whether it's the nice picture, the cool video, or that was a struggle for me to record everything I do and post that, because I'm more of live in the moment. At a concert, you won't see me recording a video of the concert. I'm going to be immersed in that concert. Plus, when I show you, look, I went to that concert, it's like crappy audio, crappy video. Why? I don't want to see that. Like, so that's how I am. I said, in a concert, I'm going to be here. I don't want to take pictures or anything. Maybe before, at the tailgate, or after, but you're not going to see me like, oh my God, this is my favorite song, and hear me singing, and not really. Mm-hmm. So that was the same with me now. But once I got this job, or you start realizing this digital content needs to get better. So I started practicing. I got really good at it. And then, the sensitivity of Black Lives Matter, of COVID, of everything you may do. You can't post a picture without a mask, or can I? And so it's a sensitive subject. So for me, I take the advice of my mom: si no tienes nada bonito que decir, no lo digas. Like, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say it. I take that same sort of ideology, where it's not saying nice, but I don't even want to put myself in that situation. Like, wear a mask or whatever. It's like, guys, I was alone, or that was like 2 years ago. I don't even want to get into that situation. So yes, I have to really be aware of what I post, and also the actual comments, or whatever the description is, to not be to be applicable to everyone. I really don't like to offend anyone. There's a part of me that says, I don't care, I don't give a fuck, like I'm a sort of rebel. Yeah. But then there's another part of me that says, no, I really don't. What hurts the most is if someone's like disappointed in me or angry at me. I'm like, damn it. I get more pleasure out of someone's happiness or someone's thing. I'm a giver. So if I see someone like bummed out because of me, I'm like, damn it. Like, I screwed up.
Yeah. Like disappointing people. Oof.
Yeah.
That's
someone being angry at you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't care if someone's angry at me. I mean, yeah. I could care less. Well, make it so, because I think that the account you have now is kind of brand laden, right? Obviously, but yeah. Can you even have a separate persona now that is more you?
No, I could. I don't think they want me to be something different or separate persona. And they're completely supportive of any political views that I may have or anything like that. They just said, if you want to do your political view or your very personal thing, please get a different Instagram. And, because right now, everything I do as any brand ambassador, I represent Abasolo Nixta. So, I mean, the reason why I got here is because I was never over intoxicated. I never burned bridges. That's just not who I am. So that's what got me here. So I'm not going to start doing it now, but I understand the worry that, some of these people were posting something and they're gone. Celebrities posting a rant or something and they're like, you're out. And they just start losing things. So I don't feel like I'm always worried of like, oh, I shouldn't put that because I don't really do anything improper. I think I'm pretty okay. But I'm actually adding my touch to that, which is really great, which they're really open to it. Casa Lumbre is fantastic. Abasolo, they said, we love your rock star attitude. We love your drumming. We love that you're a musician. We love you. Like incorporate it into the brand. So, or vice versa. And, I was really into agave and the Mexican world, which I still am, but now I have to be, the corn king and I have to own it. You have to know everything about masa and corn and maíz and tocimple. And now that's what I'm getting into. And that's going to be my focus. And, it's cool to see now that, oh, you're the guy from Abasolo. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm doing my job. People are thinking of me that way, or as a musician, they know my life. That's a good thing. I'm doing the right job and I'm inspiring people.
Is there a line? I pretty much will talk about any aspect of my life. And if someone asks, that is, I don't always volunteer it, but is there a line for you where it is too far that you simply don't want that known about you?
Never. No, I think I'm actually the opposite. I love when these real talks come out or these questions. And that was something that, so I have alopecia. So I love when someone asks, hey, you don't like have eyebrows or you don't have hair. Like, what's the deal with that? Rather than them thinking, and that's all they can think about as I'm behind the bar talking to them, when they can just ask. Like, I would just love for someone to ask, and so, I have had, I think, with this look that I have, I've confused a lot of people. People think I have cancer or whatever it may be. And I love that people are like, hey, do you have cancer or what is it? Like, it doesn't offend me. If I got offended easily, what am I doing behind a bar?
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah. So no, I actually love the questions of that. That's just one aspect of what you can see. But I also love the personal questions of like, hey, how, X, Y, and Z. I'm an open book completely. There's never nothing that I don't like to. And that may be not a negative thing, but maybe I'm giving out too many secrets. But that's for me, that's not how I look at it. Some other one may be like, hey, why are you telling them your secret of how to look good or be better or whatever? It's like, so everyone can be better and look better or whatever it may be. Like, that's my empower. Like, I want to empower people and inspire them, not really be like, yes, I'm this popular guy and I'm not going to tell you anything. Like,
that's stupid. Protecting information is fucking pointless, because I would learn it. I want to learn from you. I don't care if I'm older or I've done this or that. Like, there's going to be something I can learn from you, and you got to treat every single person that way. But I do want to just real quick, because did you ever listen to Smashing Pumpkins?
Yeah.
So there was this thing, and because you talk about treading that line and that you're really an open book. So I was reading an interview. This was years ago, but this moment I remember. I was reading an interview. Billy Corgan was talking about the melancholy and the infinite sadness that masked. I don't think it's a masterpiece, but nonetheless, it's 2 fucking discs worth of music. And so Flood produced it anyway. He said, I opened up so much that I felt I had been pierced and that the media had been able to see me too clearly. And thus the following records, he wrote different lyrics. You could feel how detached it was.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. If you're completely open book and there's no mystery to you, or you've extracted all the information, well, you've squeezed all the juice out of the agave. I don't need it anymore.
That's a great point. All the creative juice, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I get it to a certain extent that the mystery is what, that's with relationships, that's the beginning of it, that mystery, that the catch, that's the whole fun part. So I get to a certain extent, but if someone were to ask me something to extract information because they want to know, I don't mind.
Yeah. Well, it's good. So, here's something I want to thank you and the Casa Lumbre team, lovely folks and who have built wonderful friendships with over the years. I don't think I would have started nixtamalizing corn at home and making my own masa to sell if it wasn't for y'all and this Abasolo project. You know?
Yeah.
And so I want to know, when did you first get into corn?
So it's funny. I talk about this a lot. The short answer as my childhood, for sure. This is kind of the reason why I chose to represent Abasolo Nixta. I actually, when I tasted the juice, it was not in these bottles. I said, like, I don't want to taste them in the bottle. I don't want to see the bottle. I don't even want to, because I want to just taste it for the juice. And as soon as I drank Abasolo, I was like, what, this is whiskey? Like, has so much Mexico in it, if that makes any sense. I'm like, what is it? And so, you start investigating, and then you taste Nixta, and it just, boom, childhood. Like, for me, it's nostalgia in a glass. And it took me to my grandma and my mom making atole and champurrado and all these things. So for me, childhood. But at the same time, we use it so much that we overlook it. Like, it's so integrated in our lives that it's just, it's like, it's corn, relax. Like, why are you overthinking it, right? And but then you realize, like, well, tamales wouldn't exist without nixtamalization. Like, these tacos I'm eating wouldn't exist without nixtamalization. Like, all these things, tostadas, I love aguachile and ceviche, all those things would not exist without nixtamalization. And the fact that nixtamalization, we're trying to hone in on, we know how you do it, lye, ash in the water, alkaline, but back then, how did you know that would create that chemical reaction? It's incredible to me. Nowadays we can't do anything without looking at a YouTube video, like whatever it is. How the hell did nixtamalization come? I'm so fascinated by it.
Well, so I just to add, because your excitement about corn, is transferred to me. So I've researched. So Christopher Columbus was the first person to bring corn back to Europe, right? And because this is a beautiful metaphor, he didn't ever ask anybody how you should cook it. So thus, they never nixtamalized it, and pellagra developed and killed over 100,000 people in Europe.
Like, you're literally telling my story. Like, this is what I tell people. Like, when they're like, like when you don't get the nixtamalization on the first time, I was like, let me tell you a story. Let me tell you a real story. His name, I don't even call his name, I say it's CC for the same fact of the sensitivity of people that might, like, get enraged. So I just say there's a guy by name by CC, he discovered the Americas. You guys can figure out who it is. And what do you do with everything you don't fully understand and this cultural appropriation? He takes this corn, takes it to Spain, look what I brought you. And then everyone starts dying of pellagra disease because he didn't study what the hell we were doing with it. Like,
you ever seen Gremlins? You ever seen the movie Gremlins?
I haven't seen it in a while, but
it's the same concept. You get this foreign thing, you're like, I'll feed it after midnight. What do they know? It's just like fucking tragedy and chaos ensues. It's not funny that people died, but it is a humorous cautionary tale about not pretending like you know it all.
Exactly. Yes. Agreed. I mean, I know how people feel about him. I feel about him as well, but that's why I don't really dub his name. But it's just funny when you don't fully understand something. And this is the thing that's happening, not with just, not that just happened with corn, but we're seeing it now with agave spirits, that you're seeing these, whatever, Americans or foreigners, quote unquote, coming in, and, you hear them say Tabaliz and Kuishi, and they don't know how to say, they don't understand it, but yet they're selling you this agave juice. It's like, geez, like, oh my God, what is going on, right?
Yeah.
And so even someone like Dr. Ivan Saldaña, like, he's from Jalisco, he's Mexican, and when he created Montelobos, he didn't want to get the agave from the land. He wanted to cultivate it because he said, that is not my agave to take. I am not an agavero. I'm not a mezcal, I wasn't a mezcalero, but I'm not in that family. I just love it. So let me cultivate it from the beginning. And you're like, that's when I was like, Jesus Christ, you're a genius. Even an own person from Jalisco did not want to get his own agave because they weren't his to take.
And so because I always consider Dr. Ivan at the helm of innovation in spirits. Now, what's the strange thing is about Abasolo too is the fact that, and I'll do a little bit of the sales pitch for you maybe, but normally with American whiskey, I talked to Jared Hempstead from Balcones about about doing corn and nixtamalized, and we were talking about some of the components and stuff. We don't do it like that in the States, you know? And so the fact that so for Dr. Ivan to innovate, he has to recall a process that's over 4,000. I've read 8,000 years old too, depending, but go into the past to get to the future. That's what the hell?
I know. Yeah. And that's the beauty of Ivan. It's like, for us, it's, you know, we could just, okay, we have this great corn, Cacahuazintle, we distill it, we have whiskey, like done. Exactly. He's like, wait. How do we respect it? And how do we get more flavor out of this? And so he always takes it a step further. That's his beauty. He's, you know, I think you might have said this too. He's always the smartest man in the room, but the most humble. Yeah. And I truly believe that. So he's just, and his feedback when he talks, he's like, enough about me, please tell me what you guys think. Like, he's always like, I want to know what you guys think. Like, enough about me. He has that sense of hospitality in him too. And so he's always just thinking a step further, and how can we do this? And anything that I thought of, or that I'm like, you know, when we chat or we're at the distillery, you know, hey, Doc, you know, like, what about this? He's like, yeah. I thought about it. We did it and it didn't work. You're like, okay, like you already thought of it. Like, I don't even know what I'm speaking right now.
When did you know it was the right match to pair up with Casa Lumbre?
So Camille Austin, which you know very well, she reached out to me, La Loba, shout out. And so she reached out, she said, we were launching a new product in the future. It's going to be a Mexican whiskey. She didn't tell me the name or anything. She said, I know you're working for a tequila company and I know you're a beverage director at a restaurant. Just let me know if this is something that interests you. If not, no worries. And I said, yeah, absolutely. I will always say yes to everything. I like to hear you out, even if we already have something going. And so we just chatted right off the bat. We kicked it off. We had a good relationship. You know, what do you drink? She's asking me questions like, what do you usually drink? Like, I drink agave spirits. That's my jam. And my second favorite would probably be, it is whiskey. That's just my order. And so we're just talking and we had a couple conversations and then kind of moving up the ladder. And that's when I started researching a little bit more about Casa Lumbre. I obviously already knew Montelobos and Ancho Reyes, but I didn't know like the ethos and the company as a whole. And once I started reading up on Ivan, I was just like, man, this is a great company. It's family owned. It's small. They're doing things that are new and innovative. I was like, yeah, I'm into it. And I had decided as a company, I'm in. I would love to work, but I'm not going to say yes until I taste the spirit. And until I tasted Abasolo and Nixta, then I was like, stamp up of approval. Let's do it.
Yeah, it's a delicious thing. I think you have to have both. I think you have to have Nixta and Abasolo to understand them. I think you mentioned that. Yeah. And there is no other way to get the dynamic nature of the flavor of that corn, which is it 100% Cacahuazintle?
It's 100% Cacahuazintle. We malt a percentage of the Cacahuazintle, but yes. And Nixta is also 100%. It's just at a younger stage in its life. It's tender Cacahuazintle.
Gotcha. Okay. Which that's a really beautiful corn for those of us who haven't had the chance to taste it and work with it. What makes that particular corn so special?
Well, it has a lot of starches in it as well. The chemical compound, it has a lot of air or room to breathe in the corn. And so there's, depending on who you ask, there's around 31 to 42 ancestral corn varieties. And out of those, we experimented with 15. And out of those 15, after various experiments, it always landed back on Cacahuazintle. And again, the whole idea of it was flavor. We didn't really care about yield. I mean, yes, yield is a pro, but flavor was the most. And the Cacahuazintle always won. Once Cacahuazintle landed on that, just because of how it reacted, how it tasted, the location of it, Nevado de Toluca in Calimaya. Mm-hmm. So that's where, okay, we've decided on the corn, like we're going to put the distillery close to the farmer. So that's why our distillery is in Jilotepec. Used to be called Jilotepec de Abasolo, now Jilotepec de Molina Enriquez. Travel-wise, it's about 35 to an hour, depending on traffic and mountains. Mm-hmm. But this corn only grows above 6,500 feet in elevation.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it only grows above 6,500 feet in elevation. And so our elevation at our distillery is almost 8,000 feet, but that's why. It's because we're over there. So it's a high growing corn. And just like anything, I mean, this is my idea of it, but when you find any herbs or whether that be chamomile or thyme or lavender, any of these herbs, the higher the elevation, harder, they struggle. And so the ones that do grow usually tend to be more flavorful.
Yeah.
So I take that aspect, and I like to think that that's what Cacahuazintle, why it's so flavorful as well, is the higher elevation. It only grows at that elevation. That is why it's a little bit more flavorful. And that's just my ideology, but I could be right.
I think the struggle is real, Cesar. The more that something gets strained, that's flavor just compounding and concentrating. And, one of the things I always had to kind of stop sometimes and say, do people really give a shit about corn? And you know what I'm going to say right now? I don't care if they don't, but they should, right? Because it is just a beautiful thing, and it is so varied. And the thing that's lovely about the Cacahuazintle is it's just so wide. It's almost like double barreled. You know what I mean?
Huge.
And did you ever use it? I hear that it's the Pozole king.
Yes, it's the hominy corn you find in pozole. So I usually ask people, "Have you had Cacahuazintle?" And they're like, "Caca what? Like what? I don't know anything about that." And then you go, "Have you had pozole?" "Oh yeah, I love pozole." Well, then you have had Cacahuazintle, you just didn't know it. And so that hot broth actually kind of popcorns it, so it looks a little bit wider, a little bit bigger, but it is big. I mean, the reason why it's called Cacahuazintle, the Nahuatl word cacao, meaning cacao pod, because it resembles a white cacao pod, like chocolate, and cintle, dried corn on the cob. So Cacahuazintle. But cacao is big. Like if you really look at cacao pods, you open the green pod, open it up, and then it's this white fleshy meat. That is why it got dubbed Cacahuazintle.
That's crazy. See, I knew I'd be learning some things.
But yes, it's the Pozole King, and that's actually the reason why we were, sadly with some of these ancestral corns, they're going extinct because they're being forgotten and things like that. But Cacahuazintle was never really in danger because of pozole.
Oh wow!
That's pozole and tradition and everyone eating the soup. They were making Cacahuazintle specific for pozole. We're the only ones that are making a whiskey out of it.
That's so interesting to me. I was talking to the guys at Iron Root Distilling, which is in Denison, Texas, and they're using, I think they didn't confirm it to you, but the Olotillo Morado, which is a beautiful purple corn from Oaxaca, typically grown in Oaxaca. Mm-hmm. So it's getting there. These beautiful ancestral and heirloom corn varietals are, I think, finally kind of peeking their heads into American whiskey, which, I think that's a good thing. How do you feel about that?
I agree. I think it's something different. I think, not only with those, but, Balcones, Abasolo, Sierra Norte, and Pier de Almas, and all these things, they're all great because they're getting away from the GMO yellow dent number 2.
Yeah.
Right. So as long as we can keep that, it'd be the same. It'd be a very boring world if there was only tequila and no mezcal, right? If only Tequileña Weber Blue was the only one you can use for everything, I mean, it would be boring. So the fact that people are stepping away and choosing other corns is beautiful, and ancestral corns and from Oaxaca and Guerrero and all these places, that's a beautiful thing, and it's going to create variety. It's going to be sustainable in the sense of actually having these crops survive. Mm-hmm. And so, and hopefully, Abasolo is the first one to ever use the process of nixtamalization, but hopefully that inspires others. Again, we are not, Ivan is an open book just like me. It's not like, oh, we're not going to tell you that. Don't tell them this. No, it's all open book, please. So hopefully this nixtamalization hopefully opens doors and people want to use that process or some other ancient process that we forgot about, that we overlook.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing about y'all, you, Camille, and Yvonne. It's so transparent. I asked Yvonne about certain malic acid compounds, and a real Yvonne question as I was trying to understand the reduction of fructans and agaves. But anyway, he recorded me like fucking beautiful messages on Instagram that I still have. I'm like, oh, this is like a little excerpt from a 1,000-page book that I just didn't have to sort through.
Yeah.
And I love that he has that kind of level of knowledge. But one of the things I was going to ask you, because I'm so curious how this flavor is at a higher proof, 43%. I mean, easy drinking for sure for the Abasolo, but have you had something higher? You must have, that was at a higher proof.
Yes. So when I visited the distillery, we were walking around, and so we started tasting all the little experiments that Ivan had. One of them was, I think it was a total of 108 or 110. It was high up there, and it was delicious. And we just had a little bit with ice. It was fantastic. But he was experimenting with just completely new oak, and so he's like, taste this, careful, it's a little boozy, but try it. We tried, and I'm like, that's good. He's like, but do you taste the corn? And I took a second sip, and I was like, no. And he's like, exactly the problem. We need to not lose this corn. So that's the whole focus, is that we could build something that's 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 years, but then it just becomes another whiskey with an older age statement that people think older is always better. And it's not necessarily that case.
Yeah, it's not. I need to take a 10-second break real quick. I got to go open the door. My company's early, but I'll be right back. Cool. And I'll cut this out, of course.
Okay, cool.
Be right back.
What'd you get?
I've got a friend coming over to help me trim these Soto plants. That's what I got. I got labor, Cesar.
Soto's so hard to harvest, man. I went with Asís Cortés over Origen de Raíz and Dish Bay.
Yeah.
Man, like Soto, I've harvested tequila, I've harvested mezcal, and then we started doing Soto. It was so hard. I was like, after one plant, I was like, I'm done.
Dude,
so hard.
You got it. And I bought a chainsaw because that's the only real efficient way to get those leaves off, dude.
Yeah, dude.
It is. And then uprooting those things, it's brutal. All right. So I got a couple questions left for you.
Yeah.
You all plan on releasing a higher version or a higher proof of the Abasolo?
We plan on releasing an older age statement in the future, but also we've been talking about going the opposite and releasing an Ordinario.
Oh, okay.
So the Ordinario, when you come to the distillery, obviously you're on the top of the list. Ivan loves you, Camille loves you. So me actually being on this podcast, like, once again, thank you, but I feel like I've made it. This is me. I feel like I made it.
Okay, I appreciate that.
But when you come out of the distillery, you'll taste the Ordinario right off, like the first distillation. And man, it's so good. The only reason we do a second distillation is higher proof to go into a barrel.
Yeah.
But that juice is so delicious, and we're thinking of releasing that. Maybe even just the white Doug. The only thing right now we're focusing on Abasolo to be this, 2-year age statement, but eventually go a little bit older and go a little bit younger, and maybe different woods. We have a lot of native wood in Mexico. But we don't have any cooperage. Like we never had that training. So maybe that's something we figure out as well.
I think there's just going to be so much room for innovation for y'all, because it's such an interesting launching point for something that has existed and been cherished in other ways. And to your point, that whole Pozole thing where you're like, no, you've had Cacahuazintle. I bet you've had it, So I got one last question for you. We talked about kind of shutdown and everything and our little personal struggles and all of that, but let's take it. I'm going to go music, I guess, with you. So let's say you've got some Abasolo and you can have a sip with anybody, living or deceased, a musician. Who would you like just to sit down and have a drink with?
Man. Sip of Abasolo. I'm in between. I think it would probably have to be Jimi Hendrix. Or, just because he was such an innovator, another great one would be like Stevie Ray Vaughan, because him being from Austin, like I think he would get it, like the power of corn and nixtamalization. I feel like I could actually convince him. And then with Jimi, with both of them, I probably wouldn't say anything. I'd just be like googly eyes staring at him. But Jimi Hendrix and Stevie Ray Vaughan, those are both very interesting people and very intelligent in their own way, and obviously self-destructive in a sense.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that's a great question. I think it would be one of those two.
That's pretty good. That's pretty typical guitar players.
I know. So that's the safe part, right?
No, it's fine. I'm not criticizing. I just say like, I get it. Cesar, you're a guitar player.
Yeah. I think Yeah, I mean, to be really honest, Mitch Mitchell would be great too, which is also Jimi Hendrix. But if not, it would be someone like David Gilmour to pick his brain.
Oh, yeah, he's still alive too.
He's still alive, yeah. It's still a possibility.
That's good. Well, you know what? Let's try it. It's good to have clear, recordable, measurable goals. So let's make it a pact to get you sipping some Abasolo with David Gilmour.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm in. I have to write it on my whiteboard and really, how do I get there?
I love British people. I've got plenty of friends. So maybe we can make this happen. And I'll I won't join, but I want to hear.
You will join because you're the reason why I'm there.
Fair enough, dude. Well, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, and I'm glad that we get to do this thing proper. And of course, soon enough, we'll have a drink in person, I imagine. So hopefully at the distillery.
Yes, exactly. If it's not in Austin or San Diego, it'll definitely be at the distillery. So I can't wait. Hopefully next year, everything settles down and we can meet face to face finally.
Absolutely. Cheers.
So there we have it. Cesar Sandoval, part of that Casa Lumbre team. Camille Austin, Dr. Ivan Saldana. A dream team of corn and mezcal flavors, knowledge, science. I mean, this is a pretty great team, and it's great to finally get to meet Cesar, even if virtually, but we nerded out, and it's great to talk about music and just talk about microphones, talk about that stuff that we were doing 10 years ago. So thanks, everybody, for listening to Show to V with Mike G. No matter how strange it is to use gaffer tape to tape lyrics onto a wild turkey placard on your wall, or if you're thinking, I don't think I need any more coffee today, please keep dancing.